Hello everybody, this is the Week, and today we're going to talk about Vertigo. Vertigo is a movie that has been called a lot of things. It has been called a landmark in cinema. It has been called an absolute classic. It has been called one of the 1950s absolute best movies. It has been called Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece and his best movie. I call it ever so slightly overrated, and I will try to explain why. Now, Vertigo is in no manner a bad movie. I think Vertigo is a very good movie that could have been absolutely astronomically good. It couldn't quite reach its full potential, but I will say this: it is an absolute masterclass in technical filmmaking. When it comes to the technical standpoint, there is few movies that can touch it. But there are other things in this movie that complicates things for me a little bit, and we shall talk about why in a second. This is Vertigo. Ferguson, aka James Stewart, is no longer a police officer. After a colleague was killed, he's suffering from vertigo. This happened after, a rooftop chase over the roofs of San Francisco, and he doesn't really have anything to do right now. A good friend of his who is in the shipping industry asks him to follow his wife, because he fears that his wife is slowly losing her mind. She is, by the way, played by Kim Novak, who is absolutely smashing in this movie. We'll get to that in a second. He fears that she's losing her mind because of an old legend of a woman who committed suicide many years ago, and he fears that she's beginning to copy this woman's mannerism and her hairstyle and stuff like that, and that she will commit suicide because she has, gone cuckoo in the head. So James Stewart is following her around, and slowly but surely he starts to fall in love with her. But what is exactly going on here? Is it just that she's losing her mind and slowly being taken over by, the ghost of somebody? Or is it some more evil machination going on here? We shall soon find out. As I said in the intro, the technical aspects for this movie is absolutely flawless. The music is fantastic, the cinematography is amazing, the lighting is fantastic, everything is just perfect. It is cinema in its absolute purest form. There is no dialogue, there is just moving pictures and music and atmosphere and mood. These sequences are so good that it is frightening to think about it. And this movie also is bathed in suspense for the first half of it, because you don't exactly know where it's going. And when a very unexpected things happen, in the middle of the movie, you go, huh, wow, I didn't see that one coming. Then the movie has problems, but we'll get to that in a second. But first we're going to talk about my major gripe with this movie. James Stewart. My major gripe with this movie is spelled James Stewart. James Stewart is probably a pretty good actor, but I've always had a disinterest in him, bordering on hating him. James Stewart's acting repertoire consists of 1.5 things. He can look a bit surprised, with the occasional glum face showing up. And he has anti-chemistry and, sucks chemistry out of, his co-stars and stuff like that. And he has been in so many good movies where he has made the movies kind of not as good as they could have been, and that has always bothered me. And not to age shame anyone like that, but I actually think he's too old for this movie. Now, I'm not talking about the number of years that he was at the time, which was 50. I thought he was way over 60. I always thought he was 70 when this movie was made. But he feels old, and he feels like he wouldn't be in this kind of situation. And the age difference between him and Kim Novak is, 25 years, but you could have easily had, a much more handsome 50-year-old man face-sucking with Kim Novak, and it wouldn't have been as slightly repulsive as I think it is. Because why would Kim Novak, of all people, fall in love with this boring old dude? It kind of doesn't work. The second half of this movie, where the entire doppelganger thing comes up, is very, very smartly made, but it is also very uncomfortable to watch. And I don't know why I think that is, but it was the same thing with Obsession as is with this movie. I kind of feel like he's stalking her and, almost, taking her as a hostage when he's, doing all his weird stuff. And it doesn't really work. Now, Kim Novak, she pulls this one off, but this is where the boring anti-chemistry comes in to rain on our parade. This section of the movie is also home to the know too much syndrome, which Alfred Hitchcock sometimes can be the absolute master of. Dial M for Murder. What a fantastic movie that is. We are helped by the fact that we know what goes on, but the other characters do not. It is so tense. God, I wish I was reviewing that movie instead of Vertigo. It's a good movie. It's a really good movie. I'm not going to shit on it too much, but I just have some gripes that I quite can't get out of, because I'm slightly bored and I'm slightly disinterested and I'm slightly uncomfortable with the entirety of the second half of the movie. It is very nicely made, it's very well written, the atmosphere is still here. It doesn't help the fact that the second part of this movie feels a bit rudderless and we're just, floating around until the very, very abrupt and surprising ending comes, and I was like, huh? So that's the end? Okay then, I guess so. By the way, what happened to Midge Wood? They were setting up for a great love triangle in this entire thing, and she's just kind of sidelined after, the middle part of the movie. Now, if this movie could have been slightly restructured, and if they could have recasted our main male lead, we probably could have talked about this as one of the greatest movies of the 1950s. It is not, but it is still a very good movie. I mean, it is an absolute monster classic, and the atmosphere in this movie, and how wonderfully it's set up. I mean, I love movies with no dialogue where no dialogue is needed. I mean, Kim Novak doesn't say anything till about 45 minutes into this movie or something like that. And there are so much good in this movie that I kind of get very frustrated. But every time I see Vertigo and I see the fantastic opening credits and stuff like that, I'm thinking, this is the time I'm going to understand why this movie is so freaking great. But then we have James Stewart doing, exposition overload. Some writer somewhere has probably hung himself, watching that sequence. Jesus Christ, what a lot of exposition in one sequence. Vertigo is a movie you should see for its historical purposes. It is a really good story, and it is a really fascinating story. And it is also fascinating to see what, San Francisco looked like in the mid-1950s. But personally, I think that Hitchcock has made a lot of movies that are better than this one. But a movie more classic, very few. I wish I could give this movie a higher rating, but 72 points I think is fair. I don't like James Stewart, I love Kim Novak. I absolutely love the first part of the movie, and I kind of like the second one. I absolutely love the technical aspect to it, but I think that some of the writing and some of the acting is a little hokey, especially from Stewart, not from Novak. So it is a little mixed bag, but it is much more good than bad. But do I recommend this movie? Oh yes, I do. It's a movie you should see, but you should be warned that it is not for everybody. From a technical standpoint, this movie has not aged a day. It looks like it could have been made yesterday, actually. It is so freaking great looking. So, which movie is your favorite of Hitchcock's filmography? I think mine is Dial M for Murder and North by Northwest. But I'll see you next time from Well So and So reviewing Well Such and Such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.